So let's talk about disaster level God in this one, because I'm pretty sure we have finally seen it in the latest chapter of One Punch Man. Because Garou, in his cosmic fear mode, is, in my opinion, disaster level God. And while we don't literally get like a little dialogue box denoting that he is that level, and I'm pretty sure that we won't, I still think that he is objectively that strong, and might be the first case of us seeing a character outside of God and Saitama who is genuinely strong enough to have that title. Now, disaster level God is something that has intrigued all of us since the beginning of the series. Like when we first were introduced to the disaster levels, and we saw that at the top of them was a level called God, which denoted a threat to humanity. And that description in itself doesn't really do the title justice, in my opinion, because there's plenty of monsters and even heroes in this series that could be considered a threat to humanity, but they're definitely not strong enough for the implied requirements of being disaster level God. I mean, before this, one of the gold standards for that level was, like, let's say Boros, the first like super overpowered character that we're introduced to in the series, besides Saitama. And considering that he revealed a move that he implied himself could destroy the earth, that still didn't seem to be enough to reach God level, because the creator of the series, One himself, in an interview, still couldn't designate Boros as God level, because he said that Boros' disaster level was Ryu Ijo, aka above dragon. Now, while this isn't like an official canon term in itself, the community deems this an imaginary disaster level between dragon and God, meaning that a character has become so strong that they no longer can be designated simply a dragon, because they've shown to be far stronger than that, but they're still not quite strong enough to be what is implied to be God level. So they're kind of like in that in-between zone. Maybe that's what One intended, maybe not. Popular opinion is that he just didn't want to say that Boros was God level because he's waiting to reveal that, and that seems likely, because I think that once God himself is fully resurrected into their reality, I'm sure that he'll be the one to get the disaster level God box. But since that's many years away, we've been chasing disaster level God this whole time. And in the meantime, we've seen very powerful monsters that we just wanted to say was disaster level God, but we just couldn't quite give them that level, because like I said, the implied power that you would need to have, like for example, Meteoric Burst Boros, he was incredible and pushed Saitama the furthest that anyone had pushed him up until this chapter that we're going to be discussing here. And on paper, if he were to go against any of the other S-class heroes aside from Blast, he would surely dominate them. Another one was Sairochi, the fusion of Psychos and Orochi, who was supplemented by God's power. We saw that she was able to fire this energy blast that cut off a piece of the earth. Now, in our reality, that would be like an extinction level event, and surely a threat to humanity. But considering that Sairochi was still being tested by Tatsumaki, and even beam clashed with Genos, still couldn't quite say that she was disaster level God at that point, right? Well, that brings us to Cosmic Fear Garou here, because he has surpassed Meteoric Burst Boros and Sairochi by far. Hey, also guys, if you like my One Punch Man content, please subscribe if you haven't already. It's fine if you don't want to, but if you just needed a reminder, here you go. Thank you. But let me explain what's going on with him real quick. So before Garou had achieved this level, he had kind of come to the end of his fight with Saitama, which saw him pretty much being defeated. Saitama punched him hard enough to break him out of his monster shell that he was in, and it was seemingly over at that point, until God stepped in, impersonating Bang, trying to deceive Garou into accepting his influence. And despite being knocked by Saitama, Garou was still about his wits in this moment and realized what was going on. And instead of taking his hand, he slapped it away. But little did Garou know that this was still enough to accept God's influence, and he kind of forcefully, according to God, became his avatar. And with this, he gained God's power. And that is having the knowledge of the flow of all energy and the behavior of all forces in the universe. And I mean that quite literally. So that, on top of Garou's ability to instantly absorb and copy any techniques, along with the training that Bang gave him, Garou is now easily easily the strongest character outside of Saitama and God himself that we've ever seen in the series. Because with this knowledge of the flow of energy and the behavior of all forces in the universe, he can just throw a punch that causes nuclear fission, creating nuclear bombs. And he throws multiple strikes at Saitama, and each of these is a nuclear explosion. But that in itself doesn't necessarily designate him as objective god level, in my opinion, because we've seen, crazy impressive displays of power before, but they need to be more well-rounded. Like, how durable are they? Because as we saw, Sairochi could blow off that piece of the earth and Boros could destroy it in theory, but Boros was turned to mush as soon as Saitama started hitting him earnestly, and Sairochi was still being pushed by Genos and Tatsumaki. Well, that's where Cosmic Fear Garou breaks the mold here, because he winds up hitting Saitama with his very own technique in the consecutive normal punches. Saitama, of course, responds with his own, and in this exchange, I'm pretty sure for the first time, we're not seeing Saitama overpower his opponent. They're kind of evenly matched, dare I say, at this point. I mean, let's just compare the consecutive normal punches sequence with Saitama and Boros to Saitama and Garou. Boros is turned to mush, and Garou stands his ground and matches them evenly.
Boros also loses his arm in an exchange with Saitama while he was in his release state, but that's really neither here nor there. The discrepancy in power between him and Garou is even larger at that point since he's not Meteoric Burst, but still just wanted to point that out.
And at the end of the exchange, they wind up punching each other and giving each other a similar reaction. I mean, look at this. How often have we ever seen Saitama react to a strike like this? Not since Boros, right? And the fact that they both kind of recover at the same time in a similar fashion, even with Garou himself saying, "Is this the first time someone has matched you in an exchange of blows?" This is what Disaster Level God is. Casual earth-ending abilities with the strength to go toe-to-toe with Saitama and not be dominated. Possibly even match him. But it doesn't stop there, because Garou reveals that he can also do a gamma ray burst, which is an explosion that occurs at the end of the life of a massive star, and it is the largest and most powerful explosive phenomenon that has ever been confirmed in the universe. This thing is so powerful that it literally blows Saitama away. Now, does it kill him? Of course not. But it takes him out of the picture. Like, we don't know where Saitama is at this point, but he's not at this current location because he's blown away far enough and long enough for Garou to kind of do his own thing and go back down to the surface and take out the rest of the heroes here. This thing, aside from just the explanation we got on it, is truly incredible. Now, as for the aesthetics of it, it looks similar to the collapsing star roaring cannon and, vaguely similar to the blast that Sairochi did to take off a piece of the earth. But is it stronger than those attacks? Now, there's no real way to say for sure because it's not hitting the earth. I mean, this is Garou delivering this. In my opinion, Garou's not going to do anything to destroy the earth or kill anyone, really, even as far gone as he is at this point. If that were to happen, it's going to be because God caused it. So we can't really compare it to the destructive abilities of Sairochi and Boros, but just going to go out on a limb here and say that it's probably stronger than those. And while Saitama isn't hit by the collapsing star roaring cannon, he is hit by released Boros' chest blast, and he kind of just takes that on the chin, as to where this gamma ray burst blows him away. Also, when Garou does finally appear in front of all of the heroes and the rest of the onlookers, they're pretty much paralyzed in fear. Like, even the most dignified and staunch and somewhat delusional Flashy Flash here admits that there's nothing he could do. Let us not forget, Flashy Flash came face to face with Saitama and saw that he was, incredible and still was kind of in delusion about his abilities compared to him. Not the case with Cosmic Fear Garou here. I'm pretty sure that one showed us Flashy Flash submitting to him to really illustrate that they all are in acknowledgement that he cannot be stopped. That, I think, is another true defining aspect of what Disaster Level God really is. And to end this video, let me just give a clarification on Saitama here. I know I've been saying things like evenly matched because it says it itself in the chapter, but this doesn't really mean much because Saitama hasn't shown his full strength yet, obviously. I mean, if he really wanted to, if he really got serious, he could defeat Cosmic Fear Garou here, but he just hasn't gone that far yet. When he inevitably returns, maybe in the next chapter or the chapter after that, he's going to show, how strong he can get if he really feels like it. And even an incredible display of Disaster Level God power here is still nothing compared to him. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. And if you liked the video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.